right, at 7 o'clock, I will call the Finance Committee meeting to order. Tonight, we have the Telemedia Department and Enterprise Fund and DPW and Water, Sewer, Stormwater Enterprise Funds. I guess we'll start with Telemedia.
Sure. Brian Doran.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Right.
So just as a reminder, we're funded through PEG franchise fees. So we get 3.5% of whatever Comcast and Verizon make in the town, and that money goes into our PEG Enterprise Fund, which services these meetings, sports, all community events, things like that. So we have our public channel, education channel, and government channel. And we can just go through line item by line item. So I think the first is repairs and maintenance.
Start with salaries.
Okay, we start with salaries. So I try to keep this budget pretty lean because we don't really know what's going to happen with franchise fees in the future. I'm sure you've all heard of cable cutters. It's becoming more and more prominent. More and more people are doing it. So we want to be able to make sure that we're sustainable for the long run. So I always try to keep this very lean and definitely level service. So the full-time salaries requested are $181,899. We have temporary part-time salaries for $19,000, and those are for our two freelancers. They cover sporting events for us, and you've probably seen them covering a lot of meetings. They'll also do some events around town and library lectures and things like that too. The car allowances remains the same. And now we can jump into the operating. So the repairs and maintenance budget, this one is always really hard to predict because some years everything will be running fine and then suddenly, your server crashes and somebody needs to come out and repair the whole thing. So, we like to put a number in there and we get as close to it as we can when we need it, and if we don't, we don't. So it's one of those things where, Jason Marshall, our operations manager, is really good at staying on top of preventative maintenance. So he does a really good job in making sure that our equipment is good to go. The other things that go into that are the vehicle maintenance that we have. We do have a telemedia van. We use that for some of our bigger productions where we need to bring a lot of equipment, multi-camera shoots. It's usually for football. That's probably like our biggest shoot, so that we can't fit that in a few cars. So, and that's getting a few years old, so that's coming up on maintenance. In terms of that, not much has changed since last fiscal year. We can jump to leases and contracts. These are pretty much pretty similar. They cover tech support. We have a broadcast server that requires annual license fees, and that includes all their software updates and any type of support we need. And then there's also some MIAA playoff games that actually charge us to film some of them. The Tewksbury High School, I know, no cable access stations like that because we're doing the work for them for free and they still want to charge us. And we're probably going to be running into that again soon with the hockey team doing so well this season. We ran into that a few. So that hasn't changed too much from last fiscal year. The professional services, there's a slight decrease here because while there will be a contract renewal starting in FY25, all of the big legal work is really being done this fiscal year. So, that contract has already been going back and forth. So the legal fees will definitely decrease a little bit, but we still need our attorney, Bill August, who really specializes in PEG law. So in terms of consultants and specialists, we bring them in a lot of times to do advanced networking jobs. We help RFP designs, scout things out for us. And again, not much has changed there besides the decrease in legal fees. The communications, that's just cell phones for Jason and myself. Not much has changed there. Office supplies, pretty much your standard papers, pens, folders. We go through a lot of batteries and stuff here. We're always recharging our microphones, so things like that. Jump ahead into all other supplies and expenses. So this is, we try to break things out into our production items, things that we actually need to, in order to make the content, like cameras and microphones and, the computers to actually do the editing. And then we also have some stuff that are really non-production items, sort of like SD cards, cables, and connectors. So we kind of just like to keep those separate so we can just sort of keep track of it more for ourselves, is what are we doing for production and what is sort of like production support. So that's kind of how we balance that out. And then we have some outreach items. We've done water bottles in the past, and they actually became obsolete because Comcast decided to change our channel number on us. So it has the wrong channel number on the water bottles. So we're probably going to be having to get new water bottles. And they didn't give us any advance notice, so that's something
They were just getting ready
we can
to.
do again.
What did they change the channel to?
They changed it to channel 6. Yeah, it was 99 and now it's 6.
Oh,
Yeah, and they didn't give us much notice, so
okay.
anybody who has the old water bottle got incorrect information, but we're gonna fix that. Jumping ahead to other equipment, this is our big production items. These are all our cameras, field microphones, lighting kits, all, things that non-capital items that we use to produce all of our content and our media. And again, not much has changed here. There's actually, I believe, slight decreases over the past 2 fiscal years. So we've done a very good job of building up the support of town manager, the select board, the finance committee. We've really built up a good amount of equipment. And like I said, Jason Marshall does a really good job of making sure that it's all up and running. So I think we're really good from the equipment standpoint. Of course, there's always new technology, and we want to stay on top of it. Travel, this is really just for a few conferences. Jason and I will usually attend once a year. They're very helpful. One's a broadcast conference, and others a community media conference. Change there. Our 2 memberships, those are just regional cable access, PEG membership, yearly fees. Staff development, this is something that I kind of want to change around a little bit or push for. Jason, I keep mentioning him, he's the operations manager, you all know him, and he's really good, and his role has changed a lot. He's taking a lot of more IT role, dealing with cybersecurity issues, and really start as a broadcast job. But he's really taken to it, and he and I talked, and we talked with Jamie Bent, the IT director, and we think that it would be good for him to get some sort of a cybersecurity certificate and training program. So, he can help out on that end too, because Jamie's overworked, and we have, totally different infrastructure, Mac-based stuff than everybody else here is on PC. So having Jason have that knowledge would be really good. So that's something we definitely want to add in to staff development this year. So that's a change. Property and liability insurance, yeah, this actually got moved to professional services. So this is not budgeted, but it's still a line item here. I think that happened last year. And then we do have capital outlay. Did you want me to get into that now, or? And then our capital outlay project is I don't know if any of you have been to any of the school committee meetings or seen the little cart we push around for town meeting. It's a cart that lives in the high school, and it has 3 cameras, audio equipment, and we bought it probably about 4 years ago. And it takes a beating. We're pushing it around. It's on wheels. It's going up and down elevators, and but it's still usable. So the plan is, and we talked to the school administration, is we want to bring that over to the center school because we have filmed some things there before. We filmed a live school committee meeting. So that cart will live there. It's still, there's much less demand at the center school, so we think it'll be fine there. And then we want to get newer technology and a sort of a more robust solution for the high school to keep up with town meeting and school committee. And with that, I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Start over here, Rich.
I just had one question with about the cord cutting. With all the streaming services offering live TV now, live, stations, is there any way we can garner any funds from that?
So it has happened in a few states, I believe Colorado and Florida, and there's been legislation at the State House. The bill's been sitting in one of the subcommittees for a while, but there is a bill that does exactly that. So instead of a franchise fee from Comcast and Verizon, we get some sort of a franchise fee from Netflix, Hulu, whatever people subscribe to. Obviously, there's a big pushback by those industries because they're going to have to increase their costs and things like that. So that's definitely something that's on the horizon. Whether it actually happens or not, I don't know. It will definitely help us, but that's something that's in the state legislature.
Okay. And it, that's it. Thank you.
Yep.
Tom?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian, I'm happy that you mentioned the revenue side of things,
Yeah.
because we've discussed it, what the future may bring. But if on the revenue side, and maybe through you, Mr. Chair, to Richard, what thought is going into if the revenue drops off? What's the thought process?
Yes.
No, it's a great question. As Brian mentioned, it's a very lean budget. So when you look at this budget, it's $352,949. We take in right now $627,243 from both Verizon and Comcast, and then whatever interest we gain. That includes interest we gain on both revenues. So we're almost, we're a little over half. The budget's a little over half of what that comes in at. So we have cushion if there was a reduction in revenue. The other thing is we have $2,374,958 in our retained earnings, and that should continue to grow based on our budget to revenue that we have, that cushion. So even if we lose, 50% of the revenue, which I think will be a major drop, which I don't think that would happen, I think you'll always see at least Comcast revenue maintained. We'll be able to sustain the budget for a good period of time.
A good period of time?
Yeah, I think so.
5 years?
I think even longer.
Longer?
Yeah, I think so.
Because I looked at when it was commented at our last meetings, I looked at the revenue side of things, and you're right, we're sitting with a substantial cash balance. But I also look at what we pull in from the cable companies for their poll tax that they pay to the town, $2.29 per poll. And then also I look at the revenue coming in, especially if we're being charged by the MIAA. I don't understand that at all, but, to film their games. But to me, that's a greed grab. But but the revenue side, and I noticed just recently we lost 5 years or 6 years of revenue for the Assel Street Tower on their antennas, the cell phone antennas. Have we considered maybe pulling some of that revenue over from the cell phone towers into the so-called revenue stream of the cable department? Because I feel just from even what the chairman of the selectmen said the other night, he just cut the cable. There's more and more people as they look at it. I mean, I'll tell you what my cable bill is, $298 a month. for that line that comes in from the street. Part of it is telephone, part of it is internet, part of it is cable TV, with premium channels. In fact, I don't have any premium channels for that $298. So I'll be cutting the cable within the month myself. I feel that profile line is gonna drop considerably in the next year or two. That's just my own personal opinion and from what I read. But that's what I'm worried about, the revenue.
Yeah, so, I mean, revenue would have to drop, 44% for us to see
44?
about 44%, and that's when we'll break even with what the budget is.
Yeah. But will we be able to afford equipment, new equipment? And
Yeah, so I think.
This stuff
again-
here breaks down a lot.
No, I agree. So I think with the way the budget is built, he can still maintain the everyday equipment, and then the retained earnings will help supplement whatever else we need to do. The nice part about this budget, there's not a lot of, major items that he would need on an annual basis. He's not looking at $300,000, $400,000 expenses. So the telemedia has funds to upgrade the studio at the high school, which was a big expense. We bought a vehicle, which actually we're not sure how much use it will have in the future, but there's really no major capital that we have to worry about in the future. So I think we're concerned, and we're going to watch it, but we think we're positioned the way Brian has built his budget and the way we have used revenues and retained earnings that will be okay. Worst case scenario is at some point, if the town had to absorb most of this budget, we'd have to just figure out a way to do it. The funds that we get from Astle Street water tower and other water towers, that goes into the general fund. That's cellular service revenue that doesn't really pertain to cable, so it'd be tough to switch it over here. But there might be other creative ways to help fund the budget if at some point it's needed. But right now, I don't see that in the near future. But it's something, Tom, you're absolutely right, it's on our radar.
Thank you. I have no other questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Dick?
Actually, just following up on that a little bit, how do other communities fund this?
So, let me just start by saying, and Brian knows more about it because he's worked in the field. So when we were originally thinking about this, we weren't sure how we wanted to approach it. And what other communities do, and I'm glad we didn't do it, they have separate nonprofit cable television group running their cable television. So what happens is the town basically transfers that money over to that nonprofit. That nonprofit runs the operations. The town has little to say or do with the operations. We took a different approach. We didn't want to hand the money over to a nonprofit that had a board of directors and separate staff. We wanted it to be a town department. We don't want any say, nor do we have a right to have any say over content.
Right.
But we want to have a say over the budget. And by having it as a department, we have that say and we have control over revenue.
Yeah, like Richard said, most of them are 501c3s. I was actually the executive director at one of those in Lynn before I came here. And this was 6 years ago, just the lease alone was $72,000 a year. And then not even to keep the lights on, all the surrounding towns are hurting way more than we're hurting because, we don't have, we have access to the high school studio, but we don't have to pay to, keep the lights on. We don't have to lease. We don't have to heating. Those, neighboring towns, Wilmington, Dracut, Billerica, where I live, they are really going to be struggling with these nonprofit setups. So I definitely believe we made the right decision, keeping it a government department. And I believe, and I know for a fact, because there's been a lot of discussion in the PEG community, that a lot of nonprofits want to try to switch to this model, just because they can't afford to keep a studio anymore, and the use is down. People are making movies on TikTok and YouTube that are reaching millions of people. You don't need a studio anymore. So, those communities are going to be hurting a lot more than we would.
Well, kudos for making the right call.
Yeah.
We do it once in a while.
And and this is not urgent in any way, shape, or form. I know you guys do a lot, but I haven't found anything, Richard, like the other statistics or metrics on the types of, programming done, services provided kind of
What we
thing.
would provide. So I don't know if you can, anything particular you want to see is number of.
You can make it event-based in the types of events over period, over the last year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have that data. I can get that for you for next finance committee meeting.
Yeah, don't consider it urgent, just,
Yeah. Yeah,
I love
that's
to
no
look at the
problem.
numbers. Thank you, that's all I had.
So, do we, I mean, I probably have the info in my computer somewhere, but the last like 5 years of revenues we've gotten from Comcast and Verizon, like I'm assuming it's going down, but it'd be nice to kinda,
Yeah, I can get to that. I keep track of that.
yeah, okay.
Well, yeah, and it did go down because we went down to 3.5% for Verizon for our last contract, so that did go down. But actually, it has been pretty steady. We haven't noticed a significant drop-off, knock on wood.
Yeah, I've noticed-
We have not seen that yet,
So I've
so,
noticed we've kept it over 600.
Yeah.
The last few years or since we started this.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I know, I do see that some of it's from the interest from the retained earnings, right? So, I mean, that helps though.
Yeah, that helps.
Okay.
And that's why it's good that we set up.
Setting up an enterprise fund, the revenue stays with the,
Yeah,
with cable, so. But I have that, because I keep track of that, and I'll send it to you.
all right, thank you.
And just one last point, when Brian had mentioned, last negotiations with Verizon, we reduced the revenue from 5% to about 3.5%. This department, taxpayers are still paying for it. You pay it, you see the little line on your cable bill, so when we were negotiating the contract, that came into play too, We should be charging 5% for Verizon if we're charging 3.5% for Comcast, so we wanted to make it fair and equal, and that's what we did. And we're conscious of what we actually put into the contract, because it all gets passed through. Everyone thinks that, well, this has nothing to do with the taxpayer, it does. And, other towns do build a lot more into it, whether it's 3.5%, whether it's capital costs, whether it's other things, and we just don't do that.
Good point. I was paying the 5 before, so thank you. All right, I don't think we have anything else.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more question.
Almost got off.
Just to go back to the MIAA, could you explain the way that works? Let me see if I understand it. So we get into the MIAA division, whatever, finals. They record it, but we also have to pay to record it?
No, so that's even more frustrating. So sometimes they won't even have people record it, and they still won't let us do it. Just because they have I believe it's NFHS or something, they have a contract with them, they're a for-profit organization, video production company that covers high school sports and has it as like a streaming service. So they have a contract with them, and they're like, if you don't pay, even if nobody's covering it, it's just not going to be covered. However, last year, they asked us to cover a game that we weren't even in, that was in Tewksbury. And I said, I would do it, but you're not charging us for the next 2 playoff games we have. So we did it, so I got a deal on that, which was pretty good. But yes, no, it is very frustrating. And it's also frustrating because the MIA really is just the athletic directors from all of our towns.
Right, and they charge an arm and a leg to just get into the game,
They do, yeah.
the further you go along in the rounds.
Oh, I paid it.
I pay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Every city in town, I learned this when I was on the school committee, every city in town pays an enormous fee to be in the MIAA. It's part of the school committee's budget. One of the things they do is they pay all the officials out of their budgets, the MIAA. But I got into their finances when I was on the school committee. You wouldn't believe what the board of directors make as a salary. As
Quite
a
a bit.
salary.
Yes, and that's what scares me.
It's an enormous amount of money. And then when I look at the trophies, the so-called trophies that they give out, they're a piece of plywood that are made in somebody's garage,
You wanted some,
you know.
Some precious
But they'll
metal.
charge us, that's why I say it's a money grab.
Yeah.
They'll charge us to record a game, which they end up selling to another community
Yeah.
for scouting another team. That's what I don't like. We pay a fee through the town, an enormous fee to the school department. And then what happens is they come back and they try to charge you, Brian, for record their games, which they get a benefit out of.
Yeah.
That is entirely wrong. In the sports department of the Boston Globe, the Boston Herald, ESPN or whatever, NECN, they don't even report on it. The MIAA. Because they charge them for a license to report their games. That's what's wrong.
I agree.
These are kids. These are kids.
Nobody's arguing with you.
Yep.
Well, I get upset when I see somebody trying to rape
We
us.
got a lot to get through, so let's let Brian.
Kudos
off
to
the
you
hook.
though for getting the 2 games
Yeah.
for free.
Yeah, I mean, it was at Tewksbury High School, it was a championship game, and they're like, hey, cover. I said, all right, well, we're not paying for the next two, so.
That's,
Oh,
thank
for
you.
5 next time.
It'll be fine.
Shoot for
Keep
5.
upping it.
You need commercials. You
I'm
need
off to
commercials.
direct the rest of the meeting.
Awesome, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, DPW, Kevin?
All right.
Let's stop with administration.
Yeah. Give me a second here. My eyes on and pull up this spreadsheet. Administration, all right.
All right, ready? Yep. So the DPW administration has an overall increase of $7,993, or 1.5% over last year. And salaries increased by $4,272 due to step increases and longevity increases. This doesn't reflect any COLA increases in the budget. For the operating budget, it increased by $3,721. Utilities increased by 5%, $3,785, based on our current billing and projections for the rates. Leases and contracts is up by $1,000 for a lease for a new copier in the fleet division. Communications were reduced by $1,915. It's a reduction in data plans for our tablets. Now the staff is more reliant on smartphones than previous years where we had used tablets out in the field. So we were able to find a reduction there. Dues and memberships increased by $851 for our American Public Works Association membership. It's due to the most recent census. Our membership is based off of population of the community. Now our census came out, it bumped us above 30,000 residents, so our annual fee increased. And then there's no other line item increases in the administration operating budget. Do you want to pause for questions there, or?
Yeah, let's do that. There was a discrepancy between department request and town manager recommendation for temporary part-time.
Yes, that's the seasonal employees we're taking out of the budget. The reason for that is, at least on the highway, on the administration side, we just can't find
Part-time people.
part-time people, yeah. So, and with the budget being tight, it's just one of the areas we took out.
Okay. Open up to other questions.
I got
Administration.
nothing on this one.
DPW.
That was my question.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Tom.
Could you tell me what the $1 million was that's being deducted from the budget?
This budget.
Is there
That would be
discrepancy
quite a bit.
between the town manager's recommendation and your
Oh,
recommendation?
the overall budget?
Yeah,
Oh, so it was in two places, $500,000 for roads,
roads, yeah,
$250,000 for sidewalks,
okay.
Actually, it was $950
$950
for roads and
for roads.
$350 for sidewalks.
Question again, was that the original plan to take those out of the budget when we funded a DPW garage? Through the general fund?
Yeah, the plan was to try to keep it as many years as we could, and just with budget being tight this year and trying to keep everything level service, we took it out. And it worked out okay in the area of roadway improvements because we received supplemental Chapter 90 funds this year from the governor's, when the governor released funds from, I believe, the millionaire's tax. So it made up for the money we reduced out of here. I knew when I put that money in originally that, it'd be year to year. We were lucky to be able to put it in for a couple of years, so it just was taken out.
Okay, thank you. A lot of money.
No, no doubt, no doubt. We put it in there knowing we'd need it in the future, and we had the ability to raise it, and instead of just letting it sit and not be utilized, we put it towards roadways. But I knew it wasn't sustainable over time. And it was a one-time expense, so that was okay.
Yeah, and last meeting, you said that on the available free cash, the $650,000 is not enough money to fund snow removal.
It just depends on the year. This year it's looking really good, but knock on wood, yeah, you're right. We'll still have a deficit, but there are years we've spent over the $600,000. So it's hard to say. And every year for us has been different, but every year we have a deficit in our snow and ice budget itself because the appropriation and the DPW budget's never enough. But we're not going to change it.
But also, I reminded myself when we set up the stormwater enterprise system, that money would come out of the DPW budget, that we normally would fund through the DPW budget. And it seems like we're taking more money away than we are putting into it. But
Well,
that's just an observation.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but this year we moved 72,000 plus out of the highway budget into the enterprise fund. So that helped the budget too.
72,000, was it?
72,000 plus, we'll get to it when we get to the
All
next
right, let's
budget.
get on to the next one. What,
Thank you.
Engineer?
engineering, sounds good.
So as we stated, there's an overall decrease in the engineering budget of $1,303,419, mainly due to that removing the paving and sidewalks, which are combined $1.3 million. Salaries in engineering are down $331 due to staffing changes. We brought in a new project manager at a lower rate than they had been paying the previous project manager. This doesn't reflect any COLA increases in that division. The operating budget, as I said, is down over $1.3 million. Professional services decreased by $2,673. We made further changes to our GIS program and brought more services in-house, so we pay less to People GIS. Communications was reduced by $1,440. Again, a reduction in the number of data plans. We're more reliant on smartphones than tablets. The office supplies increased by $200 to cover cost of increased plotter supplies. Dues and memberships decreased by $175. That is due to variations in renewal cycles for different professional memberships. Staff development was increased by $1,000 for an Esri GIS conference for attendance of our GIS project manager. And then all of the lines in engineering are level funded.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions on the engineering budget.
I have a question.
Okay.
Engineering, that's right, we're on.
Yep.
Two things. One of them has to go back to salaries, equipment. I was told recently that we're not using the side plows anymore on the vehicles we buy, snow plows. And we just purchased a couple of vehicles with side plows, is that correct?
The most recent purchases, we did not purchase the wing
So
plows.
what do we do with the side plows that we bought?
We still utilize them on the wider roads?
Yeah, I was told we don't even use them.
No, we do, on certain roads.
And the offsets for sewer and water, if I look at engineering and the DPW, the offsets are still there. So what, for $331, what are we gonna have the engineers do?
I'm not sure I understand.
What do you mean by the?
Well, the offsets in
You say
the
the allocations for.
allocation for engineering
Yeah,
is a considerable amount of money
yep.
for sewer and water. So what are we gonna do with the money that's in your budget for engineering of only $331.
So that is a decrease in salaries overall in engineering. The salaries went down $331. And that's because I vacated the town engineer position and a project manager was promoted. And then we brought in a new project manager. So there was a shift in, you know,
In
the
funds.
grades and
Yeah.
steps of the staff members.
Okay, I still have a question on the allocated funds, but,
Yeah, actually allocations are, especially in salaries, both are actually down in FY '24, FY '25 compared to FY
for
'20
engineering,
for engineering, yeah.
yeah, in comparison to other years. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. I answered the question on sidewalks and road surfacing. Okay, I'm good. Anybody else? All right.
Okay, highway. So the highway budget shows an overall decrease of $29,288, or 2%. Salaries are up $5,027 for step and increases in longevity increases. Again, it doesn't reflect any COLA increases within that department. The operating budget is down $34,315, or 8.4%. That's mainly due to moving catch basin cleaning from the stormwater drainage maintenance into the stormwater enterprise. That was $75,200, or a 65% cost shift into the enterprise. Roadway resurfacing increased by 10% due to the cost of additional materials and the increase in asphalt prices. Leases and contracts increased by $26,480, or 24%. That's mainly due to the police detail rates that we're getting for our line painting. It's a premium detail, it's a night shift, because we paint at night. So the officers that are signing up for that are typically the more senior officers with a higher pay rate. Also, we're seeing an increase in the cost of the paint to paint the lines due to supply chain issues. There's a premium on those supplies now. All other supplies increased by $800 to account for inflation at 3%. Traffic controls also increased by $845 for a 3% inflation consideration. And all of the lines in highway are level funded.
Okay. Richard, I noticed a slight discrepancy in the overtime from your recommendation to the department. Is that it?
I level funded it,
Okay.
as I did most overtime accounts.
Okay. I mean, it's not a large amount.
Yep.
Anybody have any other questions on highway?
I do,
Mr. Cook?
you opened the door on
I did
our
nothing.
time.
I did nothing to encourage this.
Former DPW employees, heavy equipment operators that are retired, are we hiring them back?
For snow plowing.
They're collecting a pension.
Yep, they can work they can only work a certain amount of hours a year because they collect a pension, so they stay within that.
We're hiring them back on the payroll.
Yep, they're very helpful during snow operations, when we, instead of hiring private contractors, they can utilize our vehicles because they're used to the routes, they're used to the vehicles. So they've been very helpful there. We've also hired employees back who have a certain expertise where we're shorthanded to help out specifically in the
What are we doing on
trees.
liability?
They're covered like any other,
I'm sorry?
they're covered like any other temporary employee would be.
And what are we doing on workman's comp?
They'd be covered like any other temporary employee would be.
Do any other towns do that? They hire back employees that are on pension?
I'm sure they do. I know some that do.
Is it legal?
As long as they stay within the hours that they're only are allowed to work somewhere in the ballpark of 1,000 hours a year in the public sector. And as long as they stay within those hours, they're fine.
So if,
And just want to say, and this was a creative approach, and I would guess other towns do the same thing. where it's very difficult to get snowplow contractors to work for us, we're utilizing, bringing back,
The major question is,
Please.
why wasn't it communicated to the finance committee?
I don't know.
Part of a budget.
It's part of the snow and ice budget, yeah. I don't know.
I personally think it's not the right thing to do, because I know in the past, Richard, you refused to hire past employees, especially in the water department, who have a history of what is in the infrastructure.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I don't recall that, but,
I won't mention names either.
okay.
It's just,
There are
I
past-
don't think it's the right thing to do,
Okay.
especially from a liability point of view. If one of those vehicle or plow drivers hit a pedestrian or get into an accident, hitting another vehicle, I want to know what our insurance liability is going to do and the insurance company's going to say. You know,
I could double check on that, but so far it's worked well.
I think you should. It surprised me, especially when we advertise for contractors, and I know we're not getting the contractors because of the rates that we're paying. You know,
No, it's not,
and the damage that they do.
yeah, we're very competitive in our rates. We are very competitive in our incentives. There's just, like other cities and towns, finding contractors to snowplow has been very difficult. And I would guess if we went to other communities, we would find out they're bringing back employees to work. I mean, it's not the same level, but we've brought our former finance director back to work. We brought our former treasurer collector back to work. It's very difficult finding talent in certain areas, so we utilize employees who've worked here before, and as long as they stay within that certain amount of hours, then that they're allowed by statute, it works for them, it works for us. So, but I'll check on the insurance, but right now it's worked well, and honestly, we need them.
I'm more concerned with the liability
Yeah, I'll check.
insurance, workman's comp, because your group insurance is going up when you look at the budget, overall budget. Group insurance does have an increase of, I think it's 10% or more.
Yep, that's just more market-driven.
And if we're hiring past employees that are collecting a pension that the town has already paid for, and it's part of the OPEB, I just think the whole philosophy and ideology is wrong. That's just my personal opinion. Thank you.
Any other questions on Warwick Highway?
Just a couple,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman.
please.
I know we get precious little money to do road resurfacing. And looking at your narrative, we have 320 lane miles of road. And last year, we repaved just over 4. I know it's a big discrepancy, and it's not anything you can control, but what is do we have a metric for, how good a percentage of our roads of that 320 lane miles is actually, good, bad, really disastrous?
That's a great question. So, in November of 2022, we had a consultant go out and scan every road in town. And they provided us with the metrics and a score for every road segment, right? And a road segment is between any 2 cross streets along a road corridor.
Oh, nice.
In addition to that, we actually received what's very similar to Google Street View, photographs of every road segment. So we take that information and we can actually provide a breakdown of, 100 being the highest and 0 being basically something that has completely fallen apart. Every road segment has a score, and that's what we use to drive our pavement program. And the other thing we're trying to do is get into alternative resurfacing treatments. Normally we were reclaiming roads, basically digging up the whole road and resurfacing it. We're doing a mill and overlay. We're starting to get into alternative treatments such as microsurfacing, where, a road may have a score of, the mid-60s, and if we just put a skim coat
You don't
over
have
the
to
top.
rip it up completely and
Don't have
start
to rip it
over,
up,
yeah.
don't have to adjust structures and things. We put a skim coat over it to seal it to give us another 10 to 15 years.
Would we
on
be
it.
able to get access to that, to
Yes.
see that? Okay, thank you, that would be wonderful.
That'd be,
That was it, Mr. Chairman, thank
Thanks,
you.
Okay, I think we can move on to, oh,
could I
no, we
have
cannot.
just one question since we're on your, the metrics? The permits, are those permits that we give out?
Yes,
Okay. So, like, I noticed a trench permit, we gave out 201.
correct.
So that would be for some company to fix or change something in a roadway.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, to kind of fold the two together, I recently reached out to other communities within the state because I want to try to implement some sort of trench restoration requirement based on the road rating, you know? So normally, if a road is under moratorium, it's been paved within the previous 5 years, anyone who cuts into that road within that first 5 years has to pave curb to curb, 10 feet either side of their trench. After that 5 years, they just have to pave their trench. But what we're seeing is the road is still good for another several years, and what we're looking to do is to kind of match the pavement restoration for a trench with the road surface rating that we have.
Is that trench requirement, I think you mentioned they only had to do 5 feet or whatever. Is that a state law that they only,
That's local, that's within our regulations.
okay. I think it's good that we're trying to tighten it up and make them do more. That was it. I just saw that big trench number and it stuck out at me.
All right.
Forestry?
Forestry, okay.
So there's no salaries in the forestry budget. All the staff are included in the highway budget. The operating budget increased $9,190 or 7%. Leases and contracts is up $6,760. It's due to increases in contract services for tree removals and roadside mowing, mainly for crane work, which is outside of the DPW's scope, what we can handle with our equipment. We have to bring in cranes more often for tree removals and things like that. All other supplies increased by 8% to account for the police details, which I talked about earlier. The dues and memberships decreased by $50, which includes Tree Care Industry Association membership that we're no longer participating in for a $150 reduction, but then an increase in Massachusetts Qualified Tree Warden membership for $100. And all other line items within the forestry budget are level funded.
All right, open up to questions on forestry budget.
Actually, it's kind of like highways. Do we have kind of a plan that this area is, needs a lot of attention and we're going to kind of hit that heavier than another area in the next year kind of thing? And actually, I'd like to compliment because when I first moved to Tewksbury, we used to have, anytime there was a wind or rainstorm, power lines would get hit and I'd lose power constantly. But I've seen a lot of work that's made that almost invisible at this point. And I compliment the town on taking that seriously. That's why I was kind of wondering if there are areas that you target and rate like we would the roadways that, these are areas that need attention.
That's a great question. Not to the level that we do for roadways. There's no numerical value that we
Right.
assign. But we do have an arborist come through and do a hazard tree assessment. They do
Nice.
basically a windshield survey on all major roads, drive it and identify hazard trees and kind of give them a high, medium, or low rating. And then that's what we focus on for our tree removals.
Nice.
Cool.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Yeah.
I just have one more on the metrics. Was it just coincidence that we removed 70 trees and ground 70 stumps down? Those same trees?
No, because with every tree removal, there's a stump remaining.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just noticed that they were the exact same figure.
Yeah, they're one and the same.
It'd be scarier if there were fewer.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, I think we're good with forestry.
All right. Fleet. So fleet has an overall decrease of $27,033. Our salaries increased by $747 due to longevity and step increases. Doesn't reflect any COLA increase for that staff. The operating budget is down 4%, mainly due to a decrease in gasoline and diesel. Equipment maintenance is up $3,800, or 3%, due to increase in repair costs for DPW and police vehicles. Gas and diesel is down $31,580 due to stabilized prices in gas and diesel. So the budget's based on $3.50 per gallon for gasoline and $4 per gallon for diesel. Previously, it was $4 across the board for gas and diesel. And fuel prices have ranged for gasoline from
Bless you.
Bless you. $2.58 to $3.22 per gallon, and for diesel, $3.09 to $3.78, with the averages of $2.88 and $3.42 for gas and diesel respectively. There's also an increase of $2,600 in that line item for the disposal of the waste petroleum within the fleet. Bless you. And all other lines are level funded.
Excellent. Open it up for questions on the fleet.
Are we still in the co-op?
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
With what town?
Dave, do you know what towns we're in the co-op with?
Through the Mass DOT's co-op, so we get the same pricing we get.
Are we still servicing vehicles from Chelmsford and Bill Wicker
Servicing them?
for gasoline?
No.
Yeah. I know the Chelmsford School Department, I know at one time was taking fuel from us
Yeah.
through a co-op.
No, not since I've been.
Merrimack
at DPW.
Education Collaborative, I think it was. So it's only the Department of Transportation in the state?
So so we purchase through that co-op. We purchase our fuels and,
Okay, but we're not giving it out.
no.
Yeah, the only people that use our fuel are DPW, police, fire,
Right.
facilities and grounds, schools. So.
Any other questions on the fleet?
Just one quick one. What's the biggest line items that we have in the capital improvement plan for fleet this year?
DPW?
So there's an F-550 plow package. So a vehicle with the plow is $130,000.
Ah,
That's the largest largest single item.
okay. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any other questions? Okay. What do
And
we have
then
left here?
the last one for general fund DPW is snow and ice,
Nice, okay.
and that is level funded.
The same we do every year, right?
Yeah.
Went up $1, didn't it? It's supposed to go up $1.
Dollar.
Really?
$1.
Keep the Department of Revenue happy.
I think we've had the same since I've been here. on the committee.
Yeah.
Any questions?
We don't have a dollar.
No dollar to give.
We can't do it.
Any,
Well, it's 200 some odd thousand, right?
256?
231,000?
56.
256.
256,000. We used to add $1 to it every year.
Well, we haven't
Because
lost that.
DOR just kept questioning us, why don't you fund the budget what it should be, So we said, well, we'll put $1 in every year.
Okay, any questions? Okay.
Nope.
First one?
Sorry?
Yeah, which one do you want to start with?
Start with
with water?
Water, yeah, let's start with water.
You're gonna end with sewer again, huh?
No, storm.
All right. Okay. So water distribution, the overall budget, water distribution is down 20%. $256,631. Major decrease in that was $200,000 was moved out of capital outlay for the water meter replacement program, and that was put into a capital article for a 3-year water meter replacement program. The salaries decreased by $51,515, mainly due to removal of terminal leave buyback for a retired employee, $40,950 last year. There's a step in longevity increases for the staff. This budget supports 6 full-time staff, 1 summer help, a third of the assistant director's salary, and 60% of the operations assistant for utility billing. The operating budget for water distribution is down $5,116. Repairs and maintenance are up $25,476 due to increased material costs. Leases and contracts are reduced by $30,372. What we did is we took the water main trench repair that we normally funded within that, and the highway division is actually working on those water main break trenches in-house now instead of a contract service. And we increased $10,000 for our leak detection. Typically, we would do half the town each year, and now we're going after it, doing the entire town every year to find leaks. Professional services decreased by $3,000. Again, that's a GIS-related cost, and we're doing more GIS in-house, so we don't have to pay for that professional service externally. Communications increased by $40 for cellular telephones. All other supplies increased by $2,640 to remain at level service. Meter replacement increased by $100 to account for increased material costs for the in-house meter replacement. And for distribution, all other line items remain level funded.
Okay. Open up for questions on the water distribution.
I have one.
Mr. Cook?
Commercial property development, are they paying for their own meters for both fire suppression and domestic water?
Any meter over 1.5 inches is paid for by the
Developer?
developer, correct?
And do they pay a connection fee?
Yes.
What's that fee?
Depends on the size of the meter and the size of the,
Do you have a schedule?
I do.
Could you finish that?
Yep.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions or
Thank you.
anybody else?
None on distribution.
I have a question on the water meter replacement. This is you're talking like the residential water replacement?
Yes.
So we get billed 3 times a year, right, for water?
Correct.
Is there a way of pinging a meter to know it's gone bad? Like, yeah, you see a lot of people upset about, oh, my water bill is usually, I'm picking numbers out of the air, $600 and now it's $1,200. It happened to me. I said, oh, okay, I know something's wrong with the meter. Call DPW, yep, meter's not being read. Is there any way of being proactive and pinging the meters periodically to make sure that they're being read?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
That's a great question. Under our current meter system, the current registers and meter transmitting units that we have, we use a software in which we can go in and we can run reports. And we did it with the new operations assistant. She went through the system and sent out leak letters, right, where the system flags that someone has a leak, right, where it's increased usage from what they normally would use. and it flags it as a leak. We can also go in and do manual reads, and that is when we would find if a meter wasn't reading, and that would typically generate an estimated bill. The problem with that is normally the meters are read about 7 times a day, and it's a cellular system, so sometimes there's, a poor signal, and we'll get, an estimated read once, and then other times
Oh.
it comes through actual, so it.
So they're already
the
being
signal
read
does
7
vary.
times a day,
Yes.
just for leaks? Wow, that's,
But with the new meters that we're gonna install with the meter replacement program, the residents will have access to this software platform called Ion Water, in which they can monitor their usage themselves. We
Have
can
that
monitor
name
it on.
again?
Excuse me?
Could I have that name? Was it Pion?
Ion Water, EYE, on water.
Thank you.
and that's out with the most recent meter replacement?
Right, yep.
So I could get it since I have a new meter?
You should, yes. you
Oh,
should,
cool.
Be able to have that information, and that information's on our website, so you can go on and
Okay.
find out how to log into that. So that's our plan moving forward, is not only that we would be able to ping the system and understand what's going on, but the homeowner will be able to monitor their water usage as well.
Yep, so they know if they got a leaky toilet or something, that,
Right.
yep.
That's huge. That bit me once, years ago. Opened that bill and wow!
That's it.
So that's a huge improvement.
Yeah, that's great.
So while we're talking about meters, so we have a line item for meters, and I think you explained what it was, but how's that different from, we're doing a full meter replacement?
So that's a great question. The line item for meters is when someone comes in, for example, and builds a single-family home,
Yeah,
and needs a water meter for that. When it's, like I said earlier,
I see.
1.5 or smaller, they pay a fee, and we have those meters in stock, and our staff goes out and installs that meter.
gotcha,
Yeah.
thank you. And last year we had 200,000 budgeted in capital. So did we start, we've started. Did you get a new one, did you say?
Yeah,
Yeah, so we've started that this current year? I think it's this year.
No,
it's
so we
not.
have not started that meter, that full-scale townwide meter replacement program. What,
I
your
just
meter
got
would
one
have
because
been
mine went
replaced.
bad.
Right, your meter would have been replaced with the other line item.
Gotcha.
The meter program probably won't start until after July 1, when if we had approval at town meeting to borrow the funds. We'll start the program after July 1. The 200,000 that we put into the budget this year, we thought we would start that program on a small scale, but in reality, we need to go at it at a more aggressive pace with the borrowing we're proposing. Plus with revenue being lower, coming in lower this year than projected because of less water use, I've asked DPW to put a hold on any major spending until we get through the fiscal year.
So that 200 could
That
help
200 will
us.
probably just sit there
It could help us if we come in low on
on the revenue.
the use, yeah. Okay, that's good to know.
On leak detection that you're doing in town, do you notice which area? Is there any specific area, or is it all over the place, or?
No, it varies year to year. As the infrastructure ages, you find leaks.
Yep,
In different
Okay.
locations.
Okay. Do we want to go to water filtration?
Filtration, yes.
Can I have a question on the water metering?
Sure, go ahead.
Do we still have an employee monitoring the water metering consumption and so forth for billing?
Yes.
Is that employee still in the treasurer's office?
Nope, that employee is down to DPW now.
Is that the employee that was moved to DPW?
Yes, yep. So when the previous operations assistant retired, who used to sit in the treasurer's office, we brought that position down to the DPW.
Part of the ASME? That employee?
Yes, yes.
Monitors sewer also, right? Sewer billing,
Yep,
All billing.
as well as some other, folks.
both water and sewer.
Right, and stormwater.
Did the salary of that position go down?
No. We changed it.
Budget 40 hours, I believe.
She came in at a lower
Well, she came in
step.
at a lower step, but the
Lower
salary
step,
scale
yes.
is
Salary scales, yeah.
But we're still outsourcing the billing.
printing. in the
Printing
middle.
of the bills.
We still outsource it. We don't do it in-house.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Filtration?
Filtration. So the filtration budget's up 4.3%, or $114,882. Salaries increased 3.7%, or $41,322. That supports 12 full-time staff, a third of the assistant director's salary. The increase is due to step and longevity increases, as well as sick leave buyback for 2 retiring employees this year, for the amount of $20,122. And overtime increased by 5%, or $3,900 to account for those longevity and step increases. The salaries do not reflect any COLA for that staff. The operating budget's up $73,561, or 4.8%. Repairs and maintenance increased by $18,564 to account for increased material costs. Leases and contracts decreased by $35,000 for contracted lab services. We were able to hire a chemist for the lab. So instead of having to contract those services out, that cost actually shifts to the supplies and equipment needed within the lab to do that in-house. In addition to that, professional services increased by $10,000 for a consultant to help us get the lab certified through DEP so that we can do all tests in-house in the future. And we're close to getting that. But it's going to take about a year for us to finish that process. Communications decreased by $3,400 due to cancellation of internet services. We used to have kind of a bundle, I guess, for the cable and internet up at the treatment plant. Now that we have fiber optic to that building, we don't have to pay for internet to that building because it's part of the town's network. All of the supplies and equipment increased by $35,125, and that's related to those lab supplies and chemical kits. Chemicals increased by 5% to account for inflation. We are part of a consortium bidding out our chemicals, and that typically doesn't bid until March or April timeframe. Residual disposal is up by 10% due to increased transportation and disposal costs. And the water assessment increased by $200 due to DEP's increase in their fee, their annual fee. And all the other line items are level funded.
Okay, open up to questions on water filtration budget.
Just on the chemicals, you said that your 5% is your,
Right, that's what we're estimating for inflation.
okay. I hope it's at that or less.
We do too.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Rich?
No, that was it.
Just a quick one also on chemicals. A few years ago, we were actually having trouble getting chemicals regardless of the price. Is that stabilized?
Yes, yeah, we've been able to get our shipments on time.
Yeah, we never had issue in town. There was certain other systems that use slightly different ones were having real issues. We were fortunate. We didn't get alternate suppliers, so we were able to get.
That's fantastic, thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cook, questions on?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple. Had there been any upgrades in the SCADA system?
Yeah, actually, we just upgraded the server.
I'm sorry,
We upgraded the server for it, to just a modernized,
the server was upgraded?
yes.
Yep.
Okay. And you answered the question I had on chemicals. With the alum being used, are we still drying that through the rotors, the
Yes,
centrifugal rotors?
it's a drum system to dry it out.
Yeah, the centrifugal,
Yep,
there's 2 of them up there.
exactly.
Are they in good working condition?
Yeah,
They are, yeah.
So no repairs are necessary?
They're all, I mean, always ongoing, but just general PM and that kind of thing.
Okay, but we're still storing that in the silo, right?
No, we do if we have to, but we generally make it and transport it weekly,
You're transporting weekly?
yeah.
Yeah.
Has that cost gone up?
Yes, that,
Transportation,
so that's that 10% increase in the transportation and disposal cost?
well, yeah,
Because we transport that down to the DPW, we mix that with our compost and then.
So we're not using the silo at all? That we
so
pay?
we use the silo on occasion if the system is down for maintenance, but typically weekly or sometimes twice a week, we transport to the yard. That cost has not gone up, that's a relatively fixed, inexpensive cost. The bulk of the transportation cost is when we haul it out to a farm or wherever we end up disposing it. So that transportation cost has gone up.
Okay, and we're still working with a 12-hour shift?
Yeah, 13 and
Yeah.
3rd, yeah.
Okay. Could you give me an update on the filter replacement, the charcoal filters, the two beds? Are they
Yeah, well,
complete?
I don't want to interrupt you.
Nope, so we're waiting for the contractor to come in. They had to hire, they had to procure the new tiles for the filter bed, and those are expected, within the next month or so.
Both beds are being done now.
Yes, two. They've been on site, they did some preliminary estimating and scheduling. All the product's been ordered. It's supposed to be here this month, so we should be hearing something very soon.
Okay. Do we have a full-time chemist, or are we still outsourcing chemists
We now have a full-time chemist
in-house?
in-house, but because of her, she's somewhat new to the water industry, extremely qualified. She's been fantastic.
Certified, yeah.
Yes, but DEP, the way they certify laboratories based on the actual technology that you're utilizing, we have a consultant on board as our laboratory supervisor. As Kevin said, that'll be about a year, maybe a little bit, maybe two, depending on DEP's, purview. But he acts as lab supervisor, she works under him as a lab technician. She has a master's degree in chemistry, she's already started the process to recertify the lab.
And that's gonna take a year.
Might be a little bit more than a year, but that's a reasonable idea,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
And could I have your name, please?
Scott Brink,
Scott,
Brink, BRINCH,
and your title?
Assistant Director, Utilities.
Assistant Director. Okay. Who's the full-time director?
Kevin.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, I'm all done.
So I only had a question, I mean, we were just talking about the residual disposal. It seems to have gone up quite a bit over the last few years. That's something we're expect to keep going up that fast, or?
Yeah, it's becoming more and more challenging to find places to send the residuals. We have engaged with a consultant to look at our process to see what other alternatives are available to us within the footprint of our plant, to maybe look at different methods of handling the residuals.
Okay. So you're in that process of?
Yes.
Working with consultant, okay. Excellent, thanks. Any other questions? Filtration, Richard, do you wanna do the water enterprise overview, or is that?
No, it's just, I'll run through it afterwards.
Afterwards, okay.
Let's do it all.
Okay, so where are we at now? Sewer?
Sewer.
Alright.
So the overall sewer enterprise budget's up 2%, $55,511. Salaries decreased by $36,451 due to staff changing and removal of sick leave buyback for a retired employee. This fund supports 3 full-time staff, 1 summer help, and a third of the assistant director's salary, and 40% of the operations assistant for utility billing. This salary line doesn't include any COLA increases for the sewer division staff. The operating budget for sewer is up $91,962, or 3.9%. Repairs and maintenance is up $7,922, based on a 4-year average of repair costs for pump stations. Translates into an increase of $168 per pump station. Leases and contracts are down $9,000 due to the removal of an annual cost for asset management software. It's a software package that we're no longer utilizing for the division. Grinder pumps are down $350 based on our most recent quote. Professional services is up $1,000 related to printing the sewer bills 3 times a year. Lowell Sewer is up $92,390 or 5%. It's based on the latest invoice from Lowell, which identified Tewksbury's allocation to be 7.1% of the plant's operational flow. And that invoice did note that Lowell anticipates the allocable cost for FY '25 will increase by $2,624,648. And then all other line items in sewer are level funded.
All right, open up the questions on the sewer budget.
I just have one, given all our pump stations and all that. Is there any way of getting a spreadsheet of how many we have, how old they are, and A, B, C, or D, or whatever,
Great.
a grade?
Look at that, yeah.
That's a great question. So we just had an assessment done by a consultant to look at the pump stations and what upgrades are needed. So I can, through Richard, I can provide that.
Okay, great.
information to the Commission.
We only have a few of those, right? Scratch that question.
Has that assessment study been completed?
Yes, yes. And that's what we're
And what
using,
was the result?
a laundry list of improvements that need to be made. And that's what we're utilizing to run through our capital planning process.
Could we get that list?
Yes, yep, I'll
Yep.
send it.
Capital planning,
Yep.
through you, Mr. Chair, Richard. Have we upgraded the pump station, Monroe Street, for the new school?
Yes, Monroe now has an inline grinder that handles that,
Monroe Pump Station, Monroe Street. So that's already been done, that work?
yes. Yep,
And that was funded through the budget,
correct,
not through the school?
correct, through the enterprise.
Thank you. The Lowell Sewer. I have 2 questions.
Sure.
Lowell Sewer with regard to the fee going up 92,000 this year. Has that been, do we still have the meters reconciling the flow?
Yes,
Are they still working?
yep, our meter's working.
Okay, I know we added a new one, but,
We did, yeah, we added one behind Merrimack Meadows,
right,
much better than the previous meter.
yeah, I know. The, on the flow through the Lowell Sewer, we used to also dump some of our filtration. And that was one of the reasons why we upgraded the plant, because they got their nose bent out of shape. Are they receiving any waste now
No.
from the
No.
water treatment plant?
No, no, the
all.
residuals does not, right, the
No.
residuals do not go to the plant.
It's all part of the transport,
Yeah, that whole line's been disconnected.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. On the Lowell Sewer, it's not like a contracted rate type thing, it's just like we use a certain percentage of the whole, and that's
an
what we
agreement we
charge.
have. It's an agreement we have with them
Yeah,
that we renegotiated a few years back, so.
oh, okay. Yeah, that number's pretty high. All right, any other questions on the sewer budget? No. All right. Does that leave us stormwater? Is that where we're
Yep,
at?
stormwater. So the stormwater is still based on that $75 fee per year for the equivalent residential unit. The budget's $697,225 for the MS4 compliance and O&M costs. There's no capital outlay this year in the stormwater budget. There are no salaries within the stormwater budget either. It's just operating costs. And that operating cost is up $111,025. Repairs and maintenance increases by 9%, or $6,000 due to the increased cost for police details. Leases and contracts increased by $42,500. That's mainly because we moved the catch basin cleaning from the highway budget into the stormwater enterprise. And as I said earlier, that was $75,200 of increase. There's an increase in the street sweeping cost of $2,800. But there is also a reduction in detention basin maintenance of $20,000. Professional services increased by $61,165 based on what's required to be done for the MS4 permit compliance in year 7. And postage was increased by $150 due to an increase in the public education manuals that we do. All other supplies increased by $1,210, again due to permit year 7 requirements for outfall testing. And then all other line items remain the same.
Okay, open up to questions for the stormwater budget.
Just a couple of quick ones. So the stormwater maintenance, that's a legal obligation that we have in the town, right, to the state?
The MS4 permit compliance, yes.
And are we compliant at the risk of not being compliant? We're really compliant? How are we doing on that?
We are fully compliant.
Nice, perfect. That's all.
All right. Any other questions on stormwater?
Yeah, I have a couple. Is Bayberry culvert complete?
Yes, it is.
And that was paid for as a separate line item, not
That-
through stormwater?
That was paid, a portion through stormwater, a portion through grants from Mass DOT, as well as some Chapter 90 funding as well.
Okay, how about Pringle Street?
Pringle Street has been completed.
Complete?
Yes.
And who's monitoring on stormwater, the retention basins in the private developments?
So some of the more recent private developments, there are homeowners associations that are responsible for those detention basins. Anything that was accepted and the town took responsibility, the DPW oversees those.
DPW's doing the work now, not the developer?
It depends on the.
The condo is-
scenario. If there's a homeowners association responsible for it, it's on that homeowners association. If it was an older development that was taken over by the town, then the DPW oversees it.
Are we having any problems with the retention basins in the private development?
So nothing that we've taken over, we have any issues with. I know there are still some outstanding issues on Terramore Drive, but they're working through that to resolve that.
Do we monitor the chemicals, content of the retention basins?
We do not do any testing above and beyond the outfall testing we're required to do for the MS4 permit.
So DEP don't get any reports from us?
We
On
do our
stormwater?
EPA reporting for the
Right.
MS4 permit, yes,
That's the only thing we do?
right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on stormwater? Get through all the budgets?
Yep, I'm just gonna do capital quick.
All right.
Work.
Good.
stay
Thank you,
here.
Kevin.
Yes, right there. Might as well.
Good job.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Just gonna get the technical side.
Could I just, before he leaves,
Sorry.
Not going anywhere.
I'm
Go ahead.
staying right
Stay,
here.
stay right to the end. Ask the question. You can still ask while we get the video up.
could you give us an update on the DPW garage construction?
An update on DPW garage?
Yeah.
Great. So we've broken ground. They've cleared the site. They've cleared the loam. They're getting the ground improvements ready. And they're gonna be starting foundation work and the stormwater work over the next few months.
All the trees been removed?
They have, yes.
So we really haven't got, I know it's only been going since December, early December, so. Could we get update reports on that, Richard?
Yeah, what would you like?
No, just what the progress is.
Sure.
Periodically, just get a progress
Yeah,
report.
yep. I can do that, not a problem.
And expenditure of dollars. Of the bonding, the bonding money? Because we get that invested right now, correct, Richard?
Correct.
The loan that we borrow?
It's a lot of our overall funds, our cash that's on hand, what it's,
Yeah, that should be part of the progress report too,
the investment.
The investment, the interest, quarterly. It's all part of the revenue side. Thank you. Thank you for the update, Kevin.
And just so you know, we do have a dedicated website for that.
Yeah, I
We
noticed that.
post schedules and things like that.
Yeah, I saw that.
You can kind of see the
I
steps.
think there's only 2 reports on it, or something, 2 or 3?
Well, usually we just update whatever the most recent schedule is,
Yeah.
for the 3-week look at.
We're doing that, but not the contractor.
Right,
Yeah.
The OPM's gonna start doing a report,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
The OPM is doing it?
Sometimes the OPM will give us an update.
Okay.
They do
so-
reports, yeah.
Yep. All right, you want to talk capital really quick? So I know all of you have seen the capital improvement plan and enterprise fund presentation that I made to the selectmen. I sent that to each of you. I also provided a detailed capital improvement plan with narratives from all the departments regarding their requests, both for FY '25, but also for the next 5 years. Both are on the website, but I just want to go through a scaled-down plan that I'll move through quickly. So the proposed capital improvement plan that involves the departments that have submitted requests. I'm going to start with telemedia because that was one of the enterprise budgets we did tonight. They do not have any capital plans over the next 5 years. Most of their work has already been done. So for FY '25 through FY '29, they have not submitted any plans or projects. This slide gives you an indication of what we talked about before, the retained revenues they have, the breakdown of Comcast and Verizon franchise fees, as well as interest on those revenues. And I'll provide a history for the committee and send it out this week.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
through you to the town manager. Richard, are we about 50/50 Verizon Comcast? Do we know?
I'd have to check the subscriber.
That's what I meant, subscriber
I'd have to
base.
check what that base is and get that to you.
Okay,
I don't know if it's quite 50/50, but I'll check.
just wondering.
Can we judge it off those numbers right there?
No, because.
No, we can't, 'cause the numbers
Some are more
change.
expensive than others.
What?
This is based on the revenue they generate.
Oh, I thought it was 3, whatever.
No, it's 3.5%
3.5
gross revenue.
Of your bill.
Oh.
So Verizon may be cheaper or in some areas,
Gotcha.
Comcast.
Misunderstood there.
I can get that.
Thanks.
But we still have over 10,000 households, right?
Correct, but how many are?
Between Verizon and Comcast.
Yeah, but I'm not sure all 10,000 are using Comcast or Verizon for cable.
Yeah, no, we're using a 10,195 base households that are subscribers. Is that correct?
I don't know if that's correct. So we have that many households, but not all of them may use Verizon or Comcast. Some may use Verizon, some may use Comcast, and X may use YouTube TV or whatever other streaming service.
So what is our total subscribers? that we're-
I'd have to double check that. I don't know what that is.
Okay. Would Brian know?
We'd
No,
have to go through
obviously.
we'd have to go through some quarterly bills.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
The Water Enterprise Fund, as I mentioned, as Kevin had gone through, this is a combination of both distribution and filtration budgets. This slide gives you an indication of what other revenue we need to raise. This is all part of the article that will be on the town meeting warrant. The indirect costs, other costs that we raise, such as for occupational health, other post-employment benefits, debt. So this gives you an idea of all of the costs involved in the Water Enterprise Fund budget. This next slide is the revenues we project to collect in FY '25. the $8,887,965 in revenue, most of that through user fees, providing $143,422 projected surplus. That is based on water usage in the town of 649.3 million gallons a year. And we are falling short of that this year because it was a rainy season. The 2 years prior to that, we well exceeded that because they were dry years. When we projected the revenue for water and sewer, we could not use this past year's billing as well as the last 2 years because they weren't ordinary years. We used, when I projected water usage, I used the August of 21 billing, the December of 21 billing, and the April of 22 billing. Those were our last, what I would call normal usage years. The last few years have just been either too dry or too wet. So that's the revenue we're going to project. This next slide just gives you an indication of where the bills are going to increase based on usage. 90,000 gallons is a normal household usage based on the state's average annual usage projections. 55,000 gallons is where we see most of our residents, about 71% of them. So this gives you an idea of what the increase is going to be for water rates. This next slide is a summary of the capital improvements for water. Fiscal 25 through fiscal 29, we're projecting $34.1 million worth of capital. 27 million of that is going to be for water distribution. 3 miles of water main installation per year is what we're projecting to do. Water meter replacement, 4.5 million. That's to change over all the meter heads in town to update them because they're past their 10-year useful life. That's not to replace the full meter, just a meter reader, and that allow residents to take advantage of the more up-to-date and sophisticated software that we have to give them alerts on their meter usage or water usage. 1.5 million over the next 5 years for water treatment plant improvements, $750,000 over the next 5 years for hydrant replacement, and $416,000 for vehicle replacement within the Water Enterprise Fund. In FY25, we're looking at $7,525,000 worth of improvements. We're looking at the $5.4 million, which will be a borrowing for 3 miles worth of distribution water main improvement. $1.5 million for a first of a 3-year program to replace the water meter heads. The annual $150,000 for hydrant replacement. $400,000 in water plant improvements, and $75,000 of vehicle improvements, vehicle replacements to be shared with the Sewer Enterprise Fund. We have current retained earnings of a little over $1.6 million that we'll utilize, that you see further on, that we'll utilize at town meeting for some of the capital improvements in water. We have a stabilization fund of little over $1.9 million that we don't plan to use, but is there in case we have an emergency. And then, in addition to the $27 million over the next 5 years, we'll be using another $27 million in the 5 years after that in order to improve our water distribution system.
And sorry, can you go back on that last slide? So that's a 10-year plan of $54 million, which is 40% of the water mains that need replacing?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's only a long time.
So do we expect enough in the following 5 years to be another 27 some odd million? Until
If we stay this aggressive, yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, just on the hydrant replacement, how long does a hydrant last? Any idea?
I think the industry, it's like they recommend 25 years. It's not unusual for a system to go 50, honestly, but I think 25 is what you usually see.
Do you know how many we have?
1,500 maybe?
Wow. Okay, thank you.
Good with the slide?
Sure.
This just gives you an indication of the pipe we have in town. The asbestos cement is the pipe we're looking to replace, as well as the cast iron, and those are the two types of pipe that we're focused on replacing. That gives you an indication of the total length that we have in town.
And am I reading that right? It's 47, maybe 48% at the lower level. So even after 10 years, 40%, we won't.
Right, so that 40% number is based on about 77 miles of pipe we need to replace. And in the next 10 years, we'll get to 40% of that. So it's about a 25-year
Yeah.
plan right now to get everything.
Okay.
Will you still be chairman?
I'm not gonna answer that.
I think so.
That's his term limit.
Yeah, my goal is to get 40% replaced.
Staying with,
I'm done.
staying with the piping question, do we have a policy in the DPW with regard to lead piping connecting taps to the homes?
So right now, we're going through a lead service line inventory where we've got to provide information by this October to EPA on the material of all our service lines,
Residential?
Everything.
everything, residential. and
Everything.
commercial. Right.
Because I know a lot of the older homes still have lead piping on the taps.
We have no lead services in town.
We're not aware of any.
To the homes?
That, there should be, I doubt there's any lead underground. but
Come check my house.
Certainly the plumbing is possible.
My house was built in '69.
When you say the plumbing
So-
might be,
So when we talk about the lead service line, we're talking about on the street side of the meter.
All right, I'm talking about policy for new homes. Do we have a policy for a builder or developer to connect to the town system
So when
on piping type?
when a new home comes in, we're requiring either copper or plastic.
Copper or plastic? So plastic is approved
Plastic.
by the state.
Plastic's allowed by the state. Our regulations do not allow it, but we have allowed waivers. Because what we're finding is the gas mains in the road are old iron gas mains with cathodic protection. And those typically shorten the life of copper services. So we do allow plastic in some instances.
Because I noticed the gas company's putting in cathodic protection right now, or have completed it
Right.
in the town.
Yeah.
So the type, we have no policy on the type of piping that comes from our service pipe.
Within the building,
Yeah,
that's plumbing code. That's
no,
not something-
up to the foundation.
Up to the foundation is, our regulations require copper.
Only copper or plastic.
Right. Our regulations require copper, but we do allow plastic in, with a waiver in certain instances.
And what about the gate valve? The shut-off gate valve and
Those are brass.
those are good, we buy brass.
Right.
Okay, I'm just looking at the dissimilar metals, that's, I'm not a metallurgist, but
Yeah.
some of the causes due to metal. Thank you.
Sewer enterprise?
Yep.
So this slide gives you an idea of the, this would be what the article will look like at town meeting for the sewer enterprise fund. Kevin went through all of the changes in the budget, but this gives you an idea of the other costs that we'll be looking to raise within the sewer enterprise, similar to water. Next slide gives you an idea of the projected revenue. We're projecting $7,189,744 in revenue for the sewer enterprise fund, which will generate a $37,347 surplus. Projected surplus, 5.9 million of that revenue will be from user fees. Again, similar to water, we're looking at 536 million gallons of sewer usage in FY '25. That's again using the August 21, December 21, and April 22 billing usage that we're going to project. Again, it's all going to depend on the type of year we have. For sewer improvements, from FY '25 through FY '29, projected to spend $3,266,000 on sewer projects over the next 5 years, $1,050,000 on inflow and infiltration improvements, which is the I&I work in town to ensure that system's tight and we're not having any groundwater getting into the system, which goes to Lowell and obviously increases our costs in our assessment. $1.8 million to address sewer pump stations improvements, as Kevin mentioned, utilizing the assessment study that we recently completed. And similar to water, $416,000 in fleet and equipment replacement, again, shared with the water distribution water enterprise budget. Just for FY '25, we're looking at $525,000 worth of projects, $50,000 for I&I work, $400,000 for pump station improvements, and $75,000 for fleet. All of that will be paid for through sewer retained earnings, which we have $5.8 million in sewer retained earnings. We do have a stabilization fund for sewer, a little over $4 million that we're not planning to utilize. It's there for emergencies. Again, as mentioned, with 48 pump stations, 47 pump stations, we need to keep some reserve.
Question on this one? So we're trying to do, I don't know, 1.8 sewer pump station improvements, 5. Is it a capacity? Why we don't do more this year or FY '25? Like what? It seems like we have enough in retained earnings, so I guess my question is why don't we do more in FY '25? Is it?
Right. So some of it is a capacity issue of us to be able to manage that many projects. You know, we do kind of have a lot of balls in the air with that. And the other thing is just the lead time it takes to implement those projects.
Okay, and the same for the inflow and infiltration updates.
Yeah, so the inflow and infiltration is very unique. We actually have to go out and find the leaking pipes before we can fix them. And that's why.
So that's just anticipated stuff we're gonna need to do based on history?
Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Did the stabilization fund, did we utilize any money from that last year?
We haven't utilized any stabilization fund money since we created it.
Okay.
And of note, we do use funds from the, just want to go back a slide. From this slide, you can see retained earnings. We do use money from retained earnings to help offset the high debt we have in sewer.
Yeah.
So that'll continue for a few more years. And we're just getting over our peak.
Yeah, I saw the percentages.
How many more years do you think?
Just a couple.
Really?
Yeah, 2 or 3, I think.
By within the next 3 to 5 years, you'll see a significant drop off in sewer debt.
Great.
We hit the peak and we're on the way down. And that'll be a direct impact on sewer rates, but also taxes, because 50% of the sewer debt is on the taxes.
Yeah, fiscal year '25, we're at 50%. Next year, 47, 45, 36, 25.
So it's going to start to
It's going in the direction we want it to.
finally. It's been a long haul. This gives you an indication of the increases, similar to water. Most of our users are in the 55,000 gallon usage area. 90,000 is what the state uses for an average for a typical household. And we have 7,167 residential users on sewer. It's about 78%.
What was that percentage?
So I think it's around
78.
78%.
Of the town is connected?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stormwater. This is again, snapshot of the stormwater budget as Kevin had gone through earlier. The revenue we will generate for stormwater, $1,000,000 $1.1 million. We do see a large surplus in stormwater, the $436,621 is shown as a surplus, but there will be a warrant article at annual town meeting to use 425 of that for stormwater improvements. So that'll decrease what the projection would be at the end of the year. The fee is the $75 per household, and it's it's higher for commercial and larger residential complexes. Well, the next 5 years, we're going to project $2,495,000 of stormwater improvements, 1.9 in drainage improvements coming from the stormwater fee, $595,000 project development, again, coming from the stormwater fee. Capital improvements in FY25 is $425,000. $250,000 will be for the Van Buren drainage system improvements. $175,000 will be the project development and improvements for the design of Franklin School, Glenwood, and Adams area, and culvert replacement design for Upper Pinnacle culvert in Dunvegan Road. So all of that will be part of the next year's design. All capital is being funded through the stormwater fee, retained earnings and grants. We're not projected to use any retained earnings in FY25. We're hoping to build that up more before we start using it. We are really razor thin on how much revenue we take in compared to how much we spend, so we're going to hold off on using any retained earnings until we're more comfortable with that.
Kevin, could you remind me where Van Buren is?
It's off of Marston Street.
Okay,
kind of
thank you.
west of-
Thank you. Yep. Got it.
This is just a 5-year plan that I sent to everyone. This is on the website. This gives you an idea of what we're going to spend. The first 2 slides are a summary of what will be spent in the general fund and in the enterprise funds. The third slide is what we're going to raise and appropriate or transfer from the stabilization fund for capital projects. Again, this is all in the information I had sent along. The next just focuses on the Chapter 90 expenditures that will pay for capital improvements over the next 5 years. This slide focuses in on the use of retained earnings in enterprise funds that we're going to do over the next 5 years. This slide is the borrowing of the borrowing costs for water, borrowing the $5.4 million a year as well as the $1.5 million a year in the next 3 years for water meters. This is the impact to the capital improvement plan. And then this just gives a general summary of all of them put together and what our annual costs are and what our yearly costs are. This next slide is what we're going to spend at town meeting from the stabilization fund on capital improvements for the town. The first is the the DPW funds that we're going to seek approval for to pay for vehicles and sidewalk construction. The second portion is what the fire department has in their capital for a new ambulance and equipment, vehicle extraction tools, and administrative vehicle. Police department seeking to purchase a new drone. Computer services looking for funding to upgrade the Wi-Fi in the town hall and the annex, as well as door access controls. The fob system we have here is getting out of date. And then facilities upgrades at the police department, town hall annex, and recreation building. So we're seeking to use $1,354,223 from the stabilization fund. The 16.8 is the balance that will be left from the current balance of 18.2 million. As you will see in the warrant that I will send out to you tomorrow, it's a draft warrant. This is still being reviewed for edits. The school is seeking $5.8 million, somewhere a little over $5.5 million for capital improvements.
How much?
On their side, a little over $5 million.
For school?
For schools, yeah. It's both for, they have a vehicle they're requesting, and then improvements at the Heathbrook, and then HVAC at the Ryan School, and if funding's left over to begin work on those.
They have a scope of work?
Yeah, Dave's been working on it.
I'm sorry?
Dave's been working on that, Dave Libby. So he'll go over that probably next week or two,
I hope so.
but it's in the warrant. I just wanted to point that out. So our stabilization fund will be
Don't
down.
get over one, we get hit in the other.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, schools haven't requested any capital for the last few years, so this is,
$98
Is it
million
needed?
school.
excuse me,
$98 million school.
we're not looking to do anything now.
That's capital.
Yeah, I understand. I'm talking about the two, the other schools that they have remaining.
They just recently bid a couple projects. Rich, can we get that, results of those bids too? They put out for bid Wynn Middle School renovation, HVAC. And they put Heathbrook out. I hope that is what their $5.3 million is, but I'd like to see copies of those bids and the scope of work before I vote on that.
Regarding the capital improvement plan, anybody have any questions at the moment for the town manager or DPW director, since we got them?
This next slide is the capital improvements for water, sewer, and stormwater that we mentioned earlier. The cost share of the vehicles between water and sewer, the hydrant replacement, and the replacement of 2 raw and finished water pumps at the treatment plant. And then for the sewer enterprise fund, again, we went over those, the I&I work, the pump station work, and then the vehicles that they're splitting with water and sewer, and then the drainage improvements that I mentioned for stormwater. This will be the warrant article at town meeting.
Gotcha.
This next just gives you a list of the roadway paving, the spring of '24 and the fall of '24. Again, this is in the capital improvement plan that's online and that I sent out. Just, everyone wants to know how we're spending the money, so this is, gives you a general idea. Things could shift depending on how things go and bids come in, but this is the plans that we have.
Mr. Chairman, Kevin, if anyone's watching, just, could you explain just the 3 different treatment, I know what crack sealing is. Could you just explain what the 2 other ones are, just if people are wondering?
Sure, so the top group of roads has both reclaim as well as mill and overlay. Mill and overlay is where we mill off the top 2 inches and put a new surface down on top. Reclaim is when they go in and actually just pulverize the entire road, regrade it, remove whatever material they need to, and then put down 2 new courses of pavement. It's basically almost
A new road.
close to a reconstruction, right? And then the middle group, micro sealing, it's kind of a micro surfacing process. It's a very thin, maybe 3/8 to a ½ inch layer that we put over an existing road. It seals any cracks that are there and, provides a low-cost alternative to a mill and overlay, in which we don't have to mill, we don't have to haul material off-site, but it does seal the road and prolongs.
So it's like a super duper crack sealing of the whole surface of the road?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And just to follow up, Richard, when do you decide to use the micro? On what roads?
That gets back to the road surface rating. So, a micro surfacing road is rated probably in the 60s, anywhere from 60 to maybe low 70s. And if a road has that road surface score, that's when we would implement that type of treatment. And I can provide information to Richard.
I'm only gonna offer a suggestion, Kevin. If you do micro service on a road, we scrape our roads with our plows. That plow weighs almost 10,000 pounds. So part of the scraping on a micro surface road that we do does more hindrance to the surface on a micro surface road than one that has got a base, pretty good, over base. If you look at the National Civil Engineers publications on microsurface. They don't suggest to do that on heavily traveled road. Maybe a residential street that's been down for 50 years, but
Right.
they're scraping with a plow, 10,000-ton trucks with a plow on it. And it's just my opinion that that's causing some of the water breaks in the Orangeburg piping. You know, that vibration, you know, from a scraping of a plow.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So when you look at the roads we're microsurfacing,
Yeah,
we're not doing any of the main roads in town.
that's a good thing.
We started off of Shawshene Street on the, you know, the roads where you've got Amos and South Amos and Road and South
Yeah.
Road. We started in those neighborhoods with this. We did a pilot program a couple of years ago, and we don't intend to use it on any of the main roads in town.
Yeah.
Because it is, like you said, it's not as durable as the other treatments. It doesn't provide the longevity that.
Just another point from that National Civil Engineers Association publication.
Yeah.
They're also not recommending using liquid anymore because it's causing cars to rot, you know, faster than rock salt.
Right.
You know, the liquid we're putting down. It's not a good thing. It's good for the road surface, not good for the cars. That's coming from the civil engineers. Thank you.
This next slide shows you the water projects for spring of '24 and '25. That we're undertaking as part of the capital improvement plan, so gives you a one-year look. So, and then this next slide just gives you the projects for spring of '24 through spring of '25 for drainage, sewer, and sidewalks.
Mr. Chairman, on the sidewalks, are we gonna be requesting whoever owns a telephone pole to move the telephone pole?
Depends on the location. You know, what we're finding is some utility poles you can move. For
Some you
example,
can't, and what's behind it?
Right, if there's a stone wall behind it or things like that, you know, there's easements associated with moving poles and such. You know, where we are able to get a straightforward and simple relocation of the pole, we do go through that process.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
Actually, one quick question now that you brought up sidewalks. Are sidewalks considered a betterment for property tax purposes?
I'd have to check that. I can check that.
It's a very good question.
That's it on the capital.
All right, any other questions on the capital?
That's a good question. Dave, that's a good question.
As people are clamoring for sidewalks, do you want your property taxes to go up likewise?
Yeah.
Maybe property value will go up too.
Revenue,
That's right.
revenue.
All right, I think we're done with the budget review. Thank you, Kevin.
I know.
Before
Thank you.
Kevin leaves, do you want to take up that transfer? I know he's
Yeah,
it's here
Oh,
today.
yeah,
Do you want- While he's here, do you want to do it?
Or-
Did everybody get a chance to see it?
Yes, I
I
did.
saw 50,000, I didn't know how many pump stations were involved.
So it's just to provide us more funding within our repairs and maintenance budget. We're seeing that our costs are increasing. You know, anytime we bring a technician out, it costs us several $1,000s for them to diagnose something or anything like that. We're running. pretty
So
low.
it's for the entire 146 pump stations.
Yeah, it's for,
Whether it be a grinder pump or,
right, whatever's needed through the end of the year for
does that include a residential?
the residential in-home grinders.
Yeah,
No, those are the responsibility of the homeowner.
okay.
All right, so we'll take it up. This is,
Oh, okay, this one just came in at 4 o'clock
Just
today.
came in
Yeah,
today.
S4.
Sewer transfer, lateral transfer S4, in the amount of $50,000 from the Lowell sewer line to, sewer repairs and maintenance. And the repairs and maintenance has a current balance of only $241, that's why you're trying to replenish it. Now, we know that the sewer, Lowell sewer is fairly pricey, we feel like we have enough in there to,
So we
Take
get
that out.
billed, sorry, cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's another reason why I asked about Monroe Circle.
So we get billed by Lowell Sewer once a year, and we just received and processed that invoice.
okay,
So,
next.
right, we're not gonna get another invoice from Lowell Sewer until FY '25. So that remaining balance in Lowell Sewer is, you know, what's left in that line item for the year.
Gotcha,
No other charges to be hitting that.
gotcha. Great. Does anybody have any other questions on this one?
I'll motion to approve S4.
All right, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, we're unanimous.
Thank you.
These are the two from earlier, right?
Okay, where are we now? We have a couple other transfers.
Two
Yeah,
for
we've
the
got
police
two other
department.
ones.
Yep.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have lateral, sorry. Get to the right one here. Yeah, lateral transfer 24, in the amount of $20,000 from police regular salaries to police repairs and maintenance. Currently has a negative balance of more than $4,000. Unexpected issues with heat several times this winter. And flooding in our elevator shaft, causing the repairs and maintenance to go higher than expected.
Yeah, so the department's repairs and maintenance, we had put money in the spring to cover some costs that they incurred for upgrades to offices and carpeting and things like that. But what has happened in this budget
Thank you, gentlemen.
that really.
Thank you, good job.
That has caused the deficit and the need for additional funds. The elevator itself has been very costly to repair this year. We did do a replacement at the police station. We spent over $99,000 for a new elevator, but in addition to that, there was work that needed to be done in regard to the piston was 4 inches shorter than it was supposed to be when the building was installed. When the building was installed, in order to address the 4 inches that the piston was short, they put a plate in instead of a piston that would work. And when we replaced the elevator, we found out that was an issue, so that was an additional cost that was incurred. The piston was also leaking. There was also problems with the actual area underneath the well was leaking, and we needed to do a coating of that, a seal coating of that we do every few years. So the department did incur costs in addition to the work that they did on the elevator for $99,000. So that was all unforeseen. And that's why, if he hadn't had those costs, he wouldn't be coming in for a change. There were some heating issues that needed to be addressed, but majority was from the elevator itself.
And that elevator issue wouldn't have been caught in a standard elevator yearly inspection?
No.
Is there any way of keeping a check on it in the future? Or do you have to take it all apart to make sure it's?
I think in this case, what they found when they did the replacement, that's how they found the piston issue. But as far as doing the concrete sealant and things, waterproofing, Vinnie will keep an eye on that, and that'll be done every few years. But the other work, the door operator, the other repairs that totaled little over $25,000, those just came up once we did the upgrades.
Wow.
And then we spent $5,800 on a new, right now to access the upper floors. The elevator just isn't used for anybody, so if you go in, you have to you have to have a key to go to the other floors. They spent $5,800 on a new fob system for the offices. So the total on the elevator, in addition to the $99,000, was $37,900.
I'm sorry, how much?
$37,943.37.
That's part of this transfer?
Those were the additional costs that they had that caused this account to be in deficit. So he's not looking for 37,000, he's looking for 20 to get through the rest of the year.
Strictly for the elevator?
The elevator caused all the unforeseen costs. So, as I mentioned, any upgrades that were made to the department in regard to office upgrades, carpeting, things like that, I had money, I got money at town meeting in October for that.
So we have no handicap access to the second floor right now?
No, we do. The elevator, everything's working.
Oh,
We
okay.
spent all the money, yeah. They incurred all the costs. And that's why we're in the deficit. So,
Has it been considered to put a sump pump in the pit?
I'll have to ask Vinnie that.
Or at least leak detection?
No, if water comes
Yeah.
in, the sump pump would pump it out. The designs today, Rich, for elevator pits usually require now a sump pit just for a pump. And part of the code, elevator code today, it's required that you put a light in the pit and also a receptacle just for that person, the plug-in receptacle, just for that purpose. Because you have a leak, you can put a sump pump.
I can ask.
But the money that you sent me, with regard to 2020 or 22 and 23, the $25,000,
That's all this fiscal year.
that would have paid for a sump pump.
I'll ask.
A pit. All you have
Yeah.
to do is jack it out, ionize it, waterproof it, put the sump pump in and plug it in.
I can ask.
Plus the piping to a drain, indirect drain.
Any other questions on lateral transfer 24?
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, unanimous.
Thank you.
And.
And again, hopefully that gets us through the rest of the year, but that's what we're looking at.
And lateral transfer 25 is in the amount of $10,000 from police temporary part-time to police all other, which is also in deficit.
Yep. And this, as you mentioned, he uses this account for a variety of items, but equipment needed, and the biggest issue was he ran the junior police academy out of this account, which was extremely popular. And he does community policing costs out of this account, and just because of the high participation and cost of doing them, he's run short.
Yep.
But they were all successful programs that they ran.
Did we increase that budget a little bit for this coming year?
I think we did.
Because I know we talked about.
Did talk about that.
Yeah, more community policing and
Yeah.
a lot of participation,
No,
which
he's
is a
a
good
firm
thing.
believer in that, which
I think we
I
did.
believe too.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions on 25? Do we,
I'll motion to approve.
okay.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll vote no.
All other was increased from 172,653 to 181,244.
Okay, thank you. Chair votes aye, so we are 4-1. That, unless I'm missing any, I think that's the transfer.
That's everything.
Okay,
That's the transfers, yeah.
excellent.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Do we have any committee reports tonight?
I have none.
None, okay. I don't think we have a timesheet. Looking at you, Rich. I don't think we did have one.
Oh, stop. We're not gonna pay her anymore.
Okay.
Show up.
Still appreciate that. We do have meeting minutes, redo from, what was it, January
29th.
9th? minutes from some corrections.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve,
I'll
and
second.
a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye, unanimous on that. Let's see. Next meeting, I think, is next week. Somebody-
Yeah, schools, right?
The school, Shawshene and Tewksbury.
Correct, Shawshene and the Tewksbury School Department.
Okay.
So I figure we'll do Shawshene first and then schools. I'll make sure, I'll talk to Dave Libby, the business manager, as part of his presentation to speak to the capital improvements, as Tom asked.
All right, that'd be great. Do we wanna put out anybody wanna submit questions early? I don't, we've done that in the past, we haven't had.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of them was capital outlay,
Yeah, I'm going to make sure he's
know,
ready for that.
5 million.
I'll send out a email.
Yeah,
to
solicit them,
remind
I think
people.
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just a week from today, okay. If anybody doesn't have anything else, look for a motion
Motion to adjourn.
to adjourn.
Thank you,
Do
everyone.
we have a second?
Thanks.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Chair votes aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.